reconsidering the strike action, which was initially suspended by the Academic Staff Union of Universities, but would likely resume in about a month if the federal government does not fulfill its obligations, according to the Academic Staff Union of Universities. And I'm joined virtually by the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, Professor Chris Piuna. Prof, welcome to Political Paradigm.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. This has become quite interesting and concerning for me, especially because since joining this organization, I've been speaking with just about every president of the union on strike actions. It's become one too many, and even I'm getting tired. I know I spoke with Professor Abiodun, I spoke with Professor Sodeki, and here I am speaking with you about the same thing, and it still boils down to the 2009 agreement and some other issues which we will talk about. But I'm really getting tired of it. Well, let me begin by asking you this question. It's been almost a week now since you suspended the strike action. Is there any update from the government? Has the government reached out to you for a meeting?
Well, thank you very much. Since we suspended the action, we have engaged with offices of government, Office of the Integrated Payment Bureau, that's IPPIS. We've engaged with the Office of the Accountant General. We engaged with Alhaji Alamed, members of his committee, and some of the issues are currently being addressed. As at this morning, more of our branches have acknowledged receiving their check-off dues that were withheld during the 2022 strike action. Also, before the weekend, we also had received information that the Office of the Accountant General has received the tranche of money meant for our promotion arrears, and they were at the verge of disbursing that money. That was on Friday last week. We also have information that the office of the IPPIS office is waiting for the approval of the Accountant General to pay our 2.8 billion pension deductions that they need to pay to our PFA, that is the NUPEMCO. So those are the things that have happened since we suspended the strike.
The union has said that if its demands are not met in a month, that it will be a full-blown strike action. It's interesting that you already mentioned some demands that are being met. Is your stance that all the demands will be met? Or are you saying that there's room for compromise or patience where necessary? Because if I recall correctly, your concerns are around the 2009 agreements. You want improved funding for universities. You want better working conditions and payment of withheld salaries, among other things. What exactly are some of these demands that you believe? Because I don't think you believe that the federal government in a month can meet all your demands.
I don't think this is a very fair question while negotiations are ongoing. It would be unfair for us to give an answer to the question that you've asked. All we can say is that we've given 4 weeks. NLC has backed us on that matter, and we're hoping that whatever the differences are, we will be able to achieve something and, never look forward.
I understand why you would say that. But you must understand that there are students who are watching this and want to understand what exactly ASUU wants. Because if you follow the conversation, I'm sure you've heard students who believe that ASUU is being selfish. So if you explain to the student what exactly your priorities are in this fight, and I ask this because since the 2009 agreement, administration after administration, there have been renegotiations of that agreement.
Students are watching. They are listening to me. And I just want the students who are watching or who will watch this program to check up in their dictionaries what the meaning of negotiation is, what does it mean to negotiate? To negotiate means you're coming to meet another person with an open mind to take what you think is reasonable, and the other person would also take from you what he accepts as reasonable. And so for the students, they should find comfort in the meaning of the word negotiations. We are not going to state what the terms are. I've already explained, and you have also agreed with me that it may not be strategic to say those things now. The government itself will not tell us now, if you ask them how far they can go. They will not say it publicly, but we're engaged in a negotiation, and we're with an open mind. We are coming with an objective mindset. We hope that we can close the gaps and,
Yes.
take decisions that will bring us closely
I agree with you.
each other.
That
is what I can say to students.
I would be speaking with the Minister of Education, I believe that of State, in a short while. And I will pose this question. I would pose this question to the Minister of State or Education. And I believe that the minister would want to say clearly that it was almost impossible for the federal government to meet all the demands of ASUU within 1 month to avoid a strike. Now, these demands are quite strategic. There are those that apply directly to the lecturers, talking about salaries, remuneration, and all, and there are those that affect the institution directly with regard to infrastructure, revitalization, and all that. I think that some of the conversations I've heard around this suggest that the priority should be revitalization and improving infrastructure for schools. If you go to the negotiating table, and the federal government meets your remuneration needs, salaries, and all, the aspect of revitalization is not something that can be met right away.
The issue of our salaries, I think it is one that has been in the public space for a very long time. We are the least paid lecturers in Africa. We are at the very bottom, despite the wealth of this country, the resources available, despite government's public statements about how revenue has improved since the removal of subsidy, and how government literally tax everything that we do in this country except the air that we breathe. Everything else is being taxed in this country right now. And so with all of that, we are not in any position, we are not willing, we are not going to accept any discussion, any offer with government that is not based on what was agreed at the NIMI BRICS, as the NIMI BRICS benchmark that we have discussed with Alhaji Yahya Ali Ahmed. The issue of our salary, increase in our salary, even with that 35% that they have offered to us, we are still the least paid in the whole of Africa. In fact, the state universities in Nigeria earn much more. Some of them, not all of them. There are state universities that earn much more, almost double what some of our universities, federal universities, earn. And so the issue of our salary is one that government needs to give a very careful thought.
I'm just trying to understand ASUU's priorities when it comes to this negotiation, because there are those who believe that if ASUU goes into this negotiation for just itself and then focuses on ensuring that all the remuneration packages are met, the aspect of university autonomy, retirement, aid, funding, research and development, collective bargaining, these are things that were contained in the 2009 agreement. And then the aspect of the revitalization fund, which I know that successive governments have paid certain amount, but other governments have been renegotiating. Talk to us about those other aspects of this renegotiation.
When people say, ASUU is just fighting for itself, I wonder where that thought is coming from. Is it that the persons who are saying that have never entered any university? Don't they have relations that work in universities? There are children who are in the universities. Can't they tell them that even the hostels they live in as a result of the struggles of the academic staff union of universities? The federal government just said they are going to provide solar energy to certain universities, about 18 or so universities in the country. The money is coming from TED Fund. How did TED Fund come to be? TED Fund was as a result of a strike that was embarked upon by ASUU. Unfortunately, that is the language that government best understands, unfortunately. But when people say we are fighting for ourselves, it beats our imagination. Look at how ASUU has stood firmly, very firmly, against the introduction of school fees in Nigerian public institutions, universities. ASUU has stood firmly until the last strike. Until the last strike, when Nigerians were blaming us, saying all sorts of things about our strike, the government took us to court. They forced us back through the courts to come back to work. As soon as we came back, universities, government introduced increased charges in Nigerian universities. Parents are still suffering from that, but they don't remember that it was only ASUU that stood against it. We are no longer going to apologize to anybody that our wealth, our salary needs to be improved, and that it is as important to us as the infrastructural development.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking you. That's why I'm asking you. Apart from the remuneration aspect, what is the government saying with regard to the other aspect of improving the quality of education, a revitalization of the education sector, tertiary education sector specifically? What is the government offering? You just said the government is offering 35%, which ASUU is okay with for now. What else is the government?
Okay. We are not okay with 35%. I said it is a non-starter. The 35% is a non-starter. We are not okay with it. They have not even started talking to us as far as we are concerned on that 35%. That aside, we have issues that are about funding university education. We have made suggestions to them. They have accepted some. They have rejected some. For the Revitalization Fund, they have released 50 billion naira for revitalizing public universities. We say thank you for that effort, but it is not enough. We have over 150 public universities in this country. We have over 150. And to think that number is going to share 50 billion naira in this day and age that the naira has no value whatsoever is a drop in the ocean. But it's an effort, and we acknowledge it. We hope that in no time, there will be more releases. The issue of funding is a different kettle of fish, and we have told government that they should make efforts or take a position to at least meet the 26% UNESCO benchmark that has been suggested. Mm-hmm. But we also have looked at that 26% and realized that it will be difficult for government to commit 26% right now into the university education. So we said they can start with a target of 15%. And even the 15%, they should do it incrementally. So if they are giving, say, 10% this year, it should be 12% next year. It should be 14% until they get to that 50%. So incrementally, there will be a movement towards meeting the 15% and subsequently 26%. Yep. In that same issue regarding the funding of public education, we have told government that the envelope system of budgeting cannot support universities. Universities are not like the civil service. And that is one of the key problems that the government team keeps bringing to us. Universities, you can't budget for universities the way you budget for Ministry of Agriculture, for Ministry of Education, or even for NUC. Universities are peculiar. Our services in the university includes teaching, research, and community service. They don't teach in the Ministry of Education. Nobody teaches in NUC. Nobody teaches in the Ministry of Agriculture. So the budget should reflect what universities do. Teaching, for one. Research is another. Budget should be tailored towards those needs and responsibilities that universities carry out. It may interest you to know, Terry, that today there is no budget line in Nigerian universities that covers teaching. Government does not provide for it. And so they cannot lump us together with other parastatals. And that's one of the key missteps that we think the ministry did in their position or counter position to the demands that we made. On the issue of funding, their responses were as if they were thinking of a budget template that would apply to the Ministry of Education. Universities are different. We can't be treated the way ministries are treated. So funding, we have said that envelope budgeting cannot work for Nigerian universities. On the same issue of funding, government has shifted virtually every responsibility of funding to TED Fund. That cannot be sustainable. Already, they are taking funds from TED Fund for NEL Fund. Already, they are taking funds from TEL Fund from all these services that the ministry is trying to introduce. That was not the original mandate of TED Fund. And after this strike, I hope there won't be strike. After this struggle that we have embarked on now, we are going to face TED Fund squarely. The issue of TED Fund will be top on our agenda.
Yes, I was even going to ask you.
I
was going to ask you about TED Fund as well, with regard to its impact, and then ask you that while you question the impact of TED Fund and the budgeting process of the country, especially with regard to education as it falls below the UNESCO provision, what other source of funding? Because you also said that you know that the government cannot do 26% as recommended by UNESCO. What other source of funding beyond TED Fund that you believe that the government can utilize?
In our agreement, in the 2009 agreement that we're trying to renegotiate, we have suggested to government different ways that education could be funded. We suggested a percentage on phone calls, a certain percentage for every call made to go into funding education. And this funding of education is not just university, primary school, secondary school, polytechnics, colleges of education, universities. A percentage of that should go to education. They took that idea, not this government, they took that idea and were going to use it, take the money from the calls for some other purposes other than education. We have also suggested to them that stamp duty, is also one means of improving funding to education. We have also suggested to government that stop outsourcing consultancy, because right now we are running government as a government of consultants. Every parastatal, every ministry, everything, very soon, before the Minister of Education will sign a memo, he will need a consultant, or they will need consultants to look at the memos. That is the way government is running these days. Everything is consultants. And who are the consultants? They are the consultants. Their cronies are the consultants. And we have said to cut costs and conserve money for government, you can use universities as consultants. You can use academics as consultants. We are not going to charge them what the millions that they are giving their friends and cronies who serve as consultants for everything. Now, even this 50 billion naira of revitalization that we are talking about, the 50 billion naira they have released, consultants are trying to take, how much did they say? Is it 7.5 or 10% out of the 150 billion naira that was already approved? So consultants may take about 15 billion naira for consultancy. Meanwhile, there is no university in Nigeria that will get 1 billion naira. And a few people who serve as consultants can take all that away. The minister has promised us that President Ahmed Tinubu has said that should not happen. And we are watching, because he told us at a meeting that President Tinubu has said that issue of consultants should be dropped.
Prof, I do not envy you at all. I mean, you've inherited a system from your predecessors which requires you to always compel or fight the government just to get something done. I mean, take a look at an agreement since 2009. It's what we're still battling in 2025. So negotiations, renegotiations, agreements, back and forth. I want to ask you with regard to this present administration, which is a little over 2.5 years old. What is the body language of the president with regard to improving education, especially as far as the tertiary institutions are concerned, and that 2009 agreement?
Well, thank you for that question. I mean, people have said that the 2009 agreement has outlived about 5 presidents, and that it has outlived about 18 ministers of education, both the senior and the Minister of State. We hope that Dr. Tunji Alausa, the Honorable Minister of Education, will take it upon himself that he will not hand over the 2009 agreement to any minister. This government, in words, they have said they want to improve education. They have written it in their manifesto, and we're holding them onto it. They have started NELFON. Like we said, NELFON as a loan was not an idea that we supported, but it is on. And we are willing to ensure that it succeeds so that students will benefit, parents will be relieved. This government has also touted the fact that for the 2.5 years they've been in power, there has been no ASUU strike. And we actually thought that they took that very seriously, beyond rhetorics. So that's the last warning strike shows that it wasn't taken seriously. That's what it means, because we expect that if government had 2.5 years to settle down, and ASUU made that sacrifice, settle down and solve this problem. And when we started drawing their attention to it, it was as if we had become a pest. You know, when you hear the comments that government officials, particularly from the Ministry of Education, make about ASUU, it's like the fault is with ASUU. ASUU is unreasonable. ASUU, the strike is not necessary. We have done everything. Where is it? Where is the everything you have done? Where is it? Show us. Where is it? Where is it? The 50 billion naira revitalization fund, they have released it. Take it again for them. Even though the issue of the consultants that are raised and the release of the fund, it's still not been.
But the minister says, as far as that 50 billion naira is concerned, that is ASUU's internal issues that should be held responsible for it being unused.
You know, one of the problems that I think both of us have, both ASUU as represented by me and the Minister of Education who represents government, is that we tend to talk about individual steps or things not done or things that should be done. And I honestly thought that as Honorable Minister of Education, the office is so high, is so high, that that office cannot be talking about these issues the way they are talking about it. And when they talk about it that way, we respond to it in the name that we want to put the record straight. That hasn't helped. I think we should just leave that aside. What is the problem in front of us? What is the problem in front of us? What can we do to solve the problem? How can we move on from this problem?
Let's not leave that aside. Because we're talking about a 150 billion naira revitalization fund, which the government says it has agreed to pay. It inherited that, and it has paid 50 billion. The money, according to the minister, is still sitting in the bank and has not been released to the respective accounts because of ASUU's issues. Is this true or not?
Terry, that is what I'm talking about. If I say on the media now, the problem with that 50 billion naira that the minister is blaming us, if I give you my own version or our own version of that 50 billion naira, it will make him to respond again.
We're talking about students who are listening to you now, who want to know what the problem is. This revitalization fund is for the institutions. What exactly is the problem with the money? The minister has openly said ASUU is to be blamed for why the money has not been distributed or why it's still sitting in their bank account till now. So what's ASUU's own response to that? Or you don't care what the students think?
Well, students, I'm very sorry that the answer that I'm giving to Terry is not addressing your concerns. But trust me, it is better that I don't say what I think is holding it back. It is better.
You know, this almost corroborates the minister's position.
Let us,
Prof.
This matter can be resolved.
Yeah, I agree, Prof.
Leave that.
This corroborates the minister's position that ASUU is holding up that money because of its internal issues. So as far as revitalization fund is concerned, it almost exonerates the federal government. Is it safe to say that?
I should have known that the kind of journalist you are, you will not let this matter go. You're very tenacious and I mean, that's your specialty. But again, I want to repeat that my response, ASUU's response to that comment by the minister will not be helpful at this point. And I'm pleading that let this matter rest. It will be resolved, and we are not going to respond to the minister publicly on that matter anymore. We have written, he knows what we wrote. We gave our reasons why that the decision that he wants to take should not be taken. We gave our reasons. It is in writing. We've told him at meetings, and that is where we are. And we don't want to join issues with him publicly. He can go on and keep talking about how ASUU is holding back that money, but we've made our positions clear to him.
Okay.
If he wants to talk about it further, he can read the letter publicly that we wrote to him.
Okay, let's dwell a little more on this administration and its efforts in the education sector. Yes, it's not budgeting enough. Still way below 7% in the last budget is way below UNESCO's recommendation. But the government says it is taking extra steps. You've just said that you welcome NEL Fund even though you don't support it. Could you explain why you don't support NEL Fund even though it's been commended?
Well, like I said, when the idea of NEL Fund came, they wanted to give students loan for their studies. And in fact, it started with the idea of a students bank, a bank. I think that was what Babalakin SCN was proposing at that time. We opposed it. This has happened in the past, and it didn't work. So we were wary whether it will work. The current chief of staff to the president, the Right Honorable Bajape Amila, who was Speaker of the House of Reps and the originator of that bill for students' loan, made an argument, and I thought that argument was a brilliant argument, to be honest with you. He said, you should not insist that it will not work again. It makes sense. It makes sense. So that is there. Apart from that, we also argued and said that, look, if you have this money the way you have it, why don't you make it a grant so that students can secure these grants and go to school and do not have to be burdened with paying back the loan in an economy that the unemployment rate is in the skies. In an economy that purchasing power is so, poor, we made economic arguments against a loan. Government ignored us and still went ahead to start the loans. The point where we are now, for Nigerians to know, is that government had made its bed. They will lie on that bed.
Absolutely, Prof.
We hope they will sleep well on that bed. We hope Nelfon will succeed. It is a prayer that we have for them.
All right. Prof, let's wrap this up. I have just one more question for you, and it's also part of federal government interventions, especially in this era of increased hardship following removal of fuel subsidy. The federal government has, I think since May, said it will release CNG buses to universities. Are you aware if this is in place already?
These are political statements, honestly. They are. I stay in the University of Jos. I haven't seen any CNG bus here. When I go to Abuja tomorrow or next, I'm going to check in the University of Abuja whether they have the CNG buses. The Honorable Minister of Education, Dr. Tunja Alausa, launched, I think, filling stations at the University of Abuja to supply CNG buses. So, okay, some efforts are being made in that regard. But in relieving Nigerians or Nigerian students of the CNG buses, I have seen students' union leaders with those CNG buses. I have not seen the buses carrying students to classes, to their hostels and back. That is not to say it is not happening, but the hype about it, you would have expected that once you enter the university, what you see are buses. University of Jos is organizing or hosting Nuga games in about 2 weeks or so. All the buses in the University of Jos that are meant to work during these Nuga games, all of them are Methuselah buses in the late 80s. Some of those buses are the buses that are still running today, with a few that came with PTF when General Buhari was the head of PTF. Those are the buses that are still running in the university.
Right.
One would have expected that by now, almost 3 years after the promise or after the removal of the subsidy, we would have seen these things. Even staff would have benefited from it in terms of their movements, to work.
Prof.
But there is the penetration for those buses. I think government needs to look at it again.
All right.
But they're not there.
Prof, I'd like to thank you very much for your time on Political Paradigm, and we'll keep close tabs on that meeting you have with the federal government, and hopefully in a month we won't see another full-blown strike.
That's what we're hoping, that we'll all celebrate. I hope I'll be back on this program in 4 weeks' time and tell you how much we intend to do to improve the system without a strike. That, our vision of a system that will not be interrupted by any strike.
Okay, let's work on that then. Thank you very much, Prof. Well, I've been speaking with Professor Chris Piwuna. He's the president of the Academic Staff Union of Universities. We'll be right back, and we'll be speaking with the Minister of State for Education. Just stay with us.